This is the Retro Inc. podcast. Welcome back.
The one, the only, the classic Halloween.
Halloween night. A small American town. 15 years ago. Michael? Halloween.
I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil. I think he'll come back.
Exploring uncharted territory.
Totally charted.
Just talk.
Sure. The only reason she babysits is to have
Halloween.
Come on out. Halloween. The night he came home.
Hello everyone and welcome back to episode 32 of the Retro Inc. podcast with me, Andy, and my good friends Adam and Jeremy. How you doing, guys? All right?
Good evening and welcome.
Hello there.
How's things been?
Very good and very bad.
I've been fine.
But we're good.
Fine. You're always just fine, aren't you? I think
He's just fine. He's a happy man.
he's even doing it laying down here, chilled right out.
He's taken the vibe from you last week, but with
Yeah.
not intoxication.
Yeah, no, I'm back and I'm ready and I'm fighting today. So yeah, I'm fine. I'm good. Although I didn't feel right until about Thursday, I think it was, before I really started to feel myself again. But yeah, so we'll start this week with another little comment on Podbean from Mark 018441. Still won't change his name. Another great chat, guys. I drive a HGV up and down the country, so I listen to a lot of audiobooks and podcasts. I always look forward to the next instalment from Retro Inc. Always interested in great chemistry, even if Andy has a monotone voice. Lol, you know I love you, bro. Yeah, cheers, mate. Also, I'm sorry to hear about your sad news, Adam. Wishing you and your family all the best during these tough times. Cheers, Mark. Yeah, thank you, Mark. That's lovely.
Thank you very much.
So he builds you up and knocks you down, or knocks you down and builds you up, one of the two. I can't work it out, but yeah, thanks for that. We've also, you've recently you changed the page into a group, didn't you, Adam?
Well, we have the page still with all the relevant information on, But we decided to open a group page up so that we can get a lot more interaction with you guys and more interaction from you guys towards us. And seems to be going extremely well. And I want to thank Rick and Ian and various other fantastic human beings for getting involved. And shout out to the guys at Tumble Saber as well. Kyle, who's been posting some fantastic comments and feedback. And it's going really well there. So please join us on that page and get involved, because it's a great deal of fun.
And it's really picking up, mate.
It has.
Since we turned that into a group, and you told me about it, I thought, yeah, go for it. And there's been a lot more interaction now. I've noticed that. It's quite nice, especially from Rick. I've noticed Rick. Is it Villanueva? Is it?
That's right.
Yeah, his name pops up on my phone constantly throughout the day now, so it's nice to see that.
Well, we're part of the Star Wars Commonwealth, and we are, always trying to base at least, 99% of our podcasts in the Star Wars universe for about 25% of it. Now, as nerds and geeks, we're not just Star Wars fans. We are lovers of all things. Movies, TV, and toys, etc., and collectibles and whatever else, gaming. And so, this is a place and a podcast and a Facebook group where we can discuss all that stuff along with Star Wars, which is a cool thing. And those guys at the Nerd Room as well, they embrace the same kind of nerddom there, don't they? And that's what makes the Commonwealth so fantastic. All 10 podcasts is that you get a nice varied amount of conversation, interaction, and information, hopefully.
Yeah, very much so, mate.
So we are now on the Sunday the 28th of October, and we're heading towards the date, and that date would be Halloween. Jeremy, cue your laugh.
That's brilliant. On Halloween night, I'm going to have you on Skype just so to answer the door for the trick-or-treaters for me.
Great doorbell.
It is.
To be fair, if I open the door trick-or-treaters, they tend to just run away anyway. I'm all right.
Isn't it? I bet. Their parents probably don't let them come to your door. So do you guys, do you do anything for Halloween ever? Are you into it? Is it something you've enjoyed? Because I know it's quite... I mean, obviously I am a little bit younger than you, and even growing up for me, Halloween wasn't really a thing. It started to become more of interest in sort of British culture, and the older I got. And as a kid, it was just a thing we knew about, and you'd see a pumpkin here and there. But obviously now it is mainstream. I walk up and down my road, and I've just driven around the shop and come back, and there's about 15 houses all decorated, some of them all out mad decorations. And obviously you two being a little bit older than me, I'm sure you probably was a time there wasn't really Halloween here.
Nothing at all.
So, I mean, for me, I've grown up with it, and I've it's part of something I enjoy every year. It's a thing that me and my wife do. My daughter loves it. We take her out trick-or-treating every year, because around my area it's really great. Everyone gets involved. You see all the houses. It's almost like an American street, which you see in a movie around my way on Halloween night. We go around and there is just hundreds of kids and families, and it's a really nice thing to see. We don't really get any trouble from it, which is strange around my way, because we get trouble for someone breathing wrong. So it's quite a strange paradigm for that. But is it something you two do anything for? Do you get involved?
Well, I've got a Halloween tradition that I do every year. I turn all the lights off in the telly, hide in the back room, and just pretend I'm not in. And then people go away. And they stop
so you're the Halloween Grinch, right?
I
okay.
am.
Yeah. Right,
yeah. I mean, my little boy Freddie, he's 9. He doesn't understand Halloween at all. He likes all the decorations and stuff, but he said to me, "You tell me all year not to talk to strangers and don't take sweets off them, and then on Halloween you want me to go and knock on a stranger's door and get sweets off them. I'm just not doing it." He doesn't trust people enough to do it. So,
okay, that's fine.
Fair enough.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough, and it's quite enlightening outlook for a 9-year-old to have, to be honest with you. You've obviously raised a good kid that he's like, well, Dad's told me not to, so I better not. How about you, Adam?
I think I was probably around 13, 14, so this was 83, 84, and I think it was the first time I'd really heard of trick or treat. And we weren't dressed up, we just knocked on a few doors, and my mate said, "I'm going to put a mask on," and I can't remember for the life of me what mask he put on. And the first person that answered the door literally had a heart attack on the spot and told us to go away, never come back, and she started to cry. And that frightened me more than anything else, to be honest. I think what I was really confused about was that, you know, the actual origin and the tradition of Halloween was completely different to what it has become. I mean, it's a, you know, it's a tradition from the sort of harvest festivals, Gaelic. It's
Sam Hain, isn't it?
Sam Hain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's got its roots in ancient festivals, and what it's become has become, you know, telling stories, watching horror films, and, you know, it's less about All Hallows Eve and
You
attending
could say that about
church.
Christmas, though.
Well, you could indeed, and this is the thing that I think is all very interesting, is that, you know, there's not been as such, you know, a Halloween movie about Halloween, the real story of it, if you like, or that sort of looked at that part of it. But
there is a movie called Sam Hain, which is kind of more based on the old thing. I wouldn't advise you watch it. I'll watch these things so you don't have to.
Well, I like that sort of stuff. I find it very interesting, and I think it's, you know, it's, again, one of the things about All Hallows Eve is a tradition of sort of reflecting and eating certain vegetables and apples and potato cakes and pancakes and soul cakes, as they were known. And it's kind of like
that is a festival I can get behind.
That sounds great. We should do more
eating.
Of that.
Yeah, okay. That's Christmas. Just a little Christmas before Christmas. It's like a warm up to Christmas, isn't it? Let's have a night of eating, ready for a week of eating. Yeah.
So, can you remember what was the first movie that literally you saw that was a horror film or a sort of thriller, very dark thriller? Well, how old were you? What did you see? What was your first thing you can remember?
Oh.
I can actually. Yep, you go first, Jeremy.
No, you go first. Come.
I can remember this actually because it is something that stands out. I must have seen something similar before, you know, something in this vein, but the one that, like you say, that I remember watching and it actually scaring me and it really being like permeating my consciousness as something I remember is the original It. And when I was younger, I used to go to motorbike rallies every year with a family friend and like my best friend and her dad, you know, the uncle that you call uncle that's not your uncle, one of them. And I went around their house the night before we were going to this festival, you know, this bike rally. And me and her stayed up all night in the sleeping bags and we watched It because it was on the TV and we thought we'd get away with it, you know. And we sat there and we watched it, and I must have been, blimey, I must have only been about 10 or 11 at the time. And we watched it, and the next night, I mean, it didn't really bother me at the time. We just enjoyed it. You know, I'm there with my friend, and we'd be in that silly 10, 11-year-old selves. And the next night, we went to this motorbike rally, and obviously her mum and dad have gone down to the beer tent to have a drink, and we're in the tent playing cards and games or whatever. And then it dawned on us both. We just started thinking about the film that we watched the night before, and where the tent was nestled right next to this woodland, and we could hear all these noises. And the pair of us were terrified, absolutely terrified. And we remember getting out and we got the torch out, we shined it in the trees, and there was a man in there, and it was just some guy collecting wood for a fire. But obviously we screamed and run back in the tent, and it was all because of it the night before. So that's the one I remember, I think, really having an effect. But there's probably something before that, maybe something like Alien even or something, that would be deemed as a horror. So,
Jeremy?
I think I had a gradual progression. I started watching, you know, Ray Harryhausen 50 monster movies, like, and watching them and things like that. They terrified me as a kid. And then Jaws terrified me. But the first kind of horror movie that I remember watching was, again, Steve from formerly Talk Star Wars. He lived on a farm in Bredhurst, and it was like a farmhouse surrounded by fields, which was surrounded by woods. So it was scary at the best of times at night, because you had patio doors all the way around and you just saw black, and obviously there was monsters there. But the one I remember watching first was Phantasm. I remember watching Phantasm with
is that the Christopher Walken?
No, that's Angus Scrimm. It's the tall man. That's who he was.
It's
the one with the ball.
Isn't it? I think I'm thinking
there's a ball flying around that drills into your head.
Yeah, I know
that was.
Yeah.
And I remember watching that, and that terrified us. I mean, it's a terrible. You watch it now, you're like, oh my word, terrible. But it really terrified us. And then I think we watched Evil Dead the next day, which was about people living near the woods who get killed, and that terrified us. So really, we jumped straight into the deep end. Phantasm and Evil Dead.
Very cool.
I think mine was one of those. I wouldn't imagine it was a Hammer horror, but it was called the Horror of Dracula. I know it was released in 1958. It starred the great Christopher Lee, and it was one of those ones that was on sort of very late night TV. And I think as a kid, when I had a black and white TV, I've always found black and white movies much more disturbing in a certain sense, that your imagination is filling in the blanks, the color and everything else. And so tuning in, with a little dial on the front of your black and white TV, seeing what was on really late at night when you shouldn't be watching, and there was this sort of Hammer film, I suppose, before Hammer, because it was 1958, and it absolutely scared the pants out of me. I'm seeing Christopher Lee with the fangs and all the blood coming down his face, and just
that's quite an iconic photo, I think, that, isn't it? I think I know the one.
It is, yeah, with the very sort of bloodshot eyes and the blood just going down his mouth. But I think the first film that I saw properly was Christine.
That's a good film, mate.
And it was totally unexpected. I think the emotion and feeling that I got from watching a car that had the devil in it. And then I think after that, I was watching movies like Jewel and those kind of films, the way, again, it was much more, psychological. But Christine is quite a psychological film, I suppose. And I think probably the one that just followed that not long, around the age of probably 13, 14, when you're sitting around a mate's house after school and they've got a couple of VHSs out from the local shop, and we watch American Werewolf in London. So this is the kind of era, the sort of the early 80s, I would imagine, when film became extremely important to me and profound. And I guess those films, particularly as a young kid, tuning the telly in and finding some horror film, late night BBC Two, with Christopher Lee and Christine and American Werewolf. Always in American Werewolf, it wasn't so much the fact that the guy was changing into werewolf. It was more of his mate that was mangled up, that just kept appearing everywhere, And his bathroom when he's cleaning his teeth, and there's his mate with half of his face missing. Yeah. That jump made me jump more than the actual the changing itself. But the Michael Jackson Thriller video, now what year was that? 83, 4 was it?
Yeah.
I mean, that scared the bejeebies out of me.
I remember when that was first on telly. We were in Swanage with a school trip, geography trip down to Swanage, and we all my school kids were sitting there. We watched that, and then I think Jaws was on afterwards, and I was just terrified the whole night. And Jaws terrified me, and Thriller terrified me. I mean, not just because I don't like music, but it was just terrifying, the whole thing. It's just,
yeah, it scares me as well.
I think the soundtrack is a huge part of any Halloween horror movie. And usually it's string arrangements that you tend to do it, whether it's Jaws or Psycho, or even a piece of music that's in Attack of the Clones, when Anakin has got his mother in his arms, and then there's that moment where he's just filled with anger, and if you recall that piece of music, it's really scary. You're like, what is Anakin going to do? And then he just obviously leaves the tent and just massacres the whole that whole
film's scary though, isn't it, really?
Many times. But it's all about the feeling and emotion that a soundtrack can give you, and certainly horror films are full of anticipation and so the soundtrack really brings out what you're seeing. And of course, I think probably the most famous piece of music for a horror film or a movie of that type is probably going to be Michael Field's Tubular Bells in The Exorcist.
Yeah.
I don't know if you agree with that, but when you've heard that as an album piece, your dad puts it on vinyl, it sounds very different to when you then see it in a very different context in a horror film. It's just completely, you can never hear that piece of music quite the same ever again.
You're right, because that is a very clever album, because I know from my years of being a hippie that album was used, to chill out to remix. We used to turn it into, it was very much an orchestral piece that you could use for many different reasons, but you put it in the context of that movie and it becomes quite haunting. It's very clever use of music, and that's something that I was going to talk about with horror films in general. Was music matters so much to these films. That's why, let's be honest, if you're going to talk about horror movies, a lot of iconic music in films is from horror, because my mum taught me a trick when I was younger, and she said, if you're ever scared watching a horror film, just turn the sound off.
Yeah.
Right? And it's so true. You turn that sound off and you can sit there and watch anything on the screen, and it can still be a little bit, daunting or whatever, but it takes so much away. Then as soon as you eliminate that sound from it, all the fear is gone, because the tension of the strings and the orchestral pieces.
Well, I was lucky. Last night I watched the new Halloween movie.
Oh, yeah.
Which is superb. It's by far the best of the Halloween sequels or the movies other than the original. It is brilliant. But there's a prolonged scene in it where there's almost no sound at all. There's no music. There's very little, background noise or anything. And that built the tension up to such a degree that your heart was racing. You're like, and it's one of the, and it wasn't until there was a noise you realised there was no noise going on, and that built a tension. And it's so rare that the silence in a movie can cause that.
Yeah, I think if it's done, it has to be done right, and it can work so well. We saw it in The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
And we saw it in The Quiet Place as well.
Exactly. And I mean, I know with The Quiet Place, apparently when they do the DVD release or the Blu-ray release, sorry, I'm still living in 2005. When they do the Blu-ray release, they will be putting a soundtrack-free version on there. And I actually want to see that film again like that, to see if that, because the score in that film is phenomenal. It's a beautiful thing to listen to, and it works so well. And when I was watching it, I was thinking, I don't know if this film will work without the sound, because the way they do the use of no sound in the right places does build that tension. And it's exactly what you're saying about that new Halloween film. I haven't seen it, but if done right, it can actually have more effect than a piece over the top. So I mean, that, this is the point. Sound in general with a horror film, sound on this use of no sound at the right points, can change that whole movie. Because let's be honest, if you was to sit there and watch something like Halloween with, an 80s
Benny
funk
Hill
album,
playing,
80s funk album or Benny Hill over the top of it, you're gonna laugh all the way through that movie, because it's gonna change that aesthetic so much. But yeah, I mate, that Halloween film, I am champing at the bit to go see that. I really am.
I can't recommend it enough. It is brilliant.
I know IGN gave it a 9 out of 10, and for them to do that,
easy.
to do that to a film like Halloween, or to a horror film in general, it's not often they get high scores, because this is something else we're going to talk about. But my feelings with horror films a lot of the time is the execution of an ending. They're always the worst bits of a horror film. They either over explain it, under explain it, or just go completely left field that it makes no sense. And it's always the ending. I said this before about zombie films. They're great all the way up until about the last 10 minutes. Because let's be honest, unless, there's some films like Halloween that do it very well because they continue the plot through other movies. What order you watch them in is up to you. But, when you know you're getting a sequel, sometimes that helps because you can finish the film on a cliffhanger. But then how do you end in the next one? That's always my issue with it. But what is it we was exactly going to do tonight, Adam? You had a little plan, didn't you?
Well, I mean, one of the things that I think has popped up very recently is this list of movies, and I think because we're heading towards Halloween, obviously, many a website, IMDb, as well as IGN and various other websites have put out their own list of horror movies and the best ones to watch for Halloween. And I think when you're trying to sort of build a list of what makes a great movie in this genre, is it about how scary it is? Is it about the psychological menace and atmosphere and jump moments that are in this genre? Is it sort of grounded in human fears of the unknown, i.e. monsters, mysterious persons next door, creepy clowns? Does it have a cultural and historical sort of significance within its genre? And I think to sort of start going through a list of these films as I'll read them out, and then see what your reaction to this is and whether you've seen them or not. Well, I think it would be a really great start. And I'm going to start with a film called The Ring.
Yeah.
And have you both seen the film The Ring?
Yeah.
Keep it clean.
No,
I try to.
Set up.
Gore Verbinski's movie that came out in 2002.
We're talking about the remake.
Well, which one would you prefer to see? I mean, would you like to talk about? Neither. See, for me, I saw the remake. I think was 1998, and it was a Japanese movie. I think previously.
Ringu, wasn't it?
Ringu, yeah. Now,
it is.
Not to be confused with Pingu. Either of you have much sort of comment on that type of horror film?
Well,
I don't. It doesn't do anything for me.
See, the thing was, this was a time when me and my wife were just getting together when the original was kind of at its peak over here. The young people that thought it was cool to watch it sort of peak. And there was one night we was watching it in bed together, and I was falling asleep. When you do that thing with your eyes closed and you're pretending that you're still awake when they turn it over. And she turned it over, and I went, "Don't!" I was listening to that.
Oh, you're joking.
And she was like, "I didn't realise you were fluent in Japanese, but okay, I'll turn it back on." I don't go much. I don't know if it's not a cultural thing, because I really like Japanese culture and some of the stories they've come out with. I just can't get into Japanese movies. I think my problem with it is when I watch horror films, I like to be engrossed in the plot. And I like to be engrossed in what's going on. And when I'm having to read subtitles, it's detracting from that immersion in that movie. So that's why. And then I don't really like Western remakes of Japanese movies again. So I think that's why I've never really fallen in with this Ring series. As well, it's got some scary moments. Don't get me wrong. Like I can't remember her name. It comes out the TV. Begins with an S. It's creepy. It's creepy as hell. I mean, that's so iconic, and it's a great use. So just don't go in with the story, because I find Japanese storytelling sometimes to be a little bit weird and doesn't really make much sense as to what's going on. Maybe I just don't get it. I don't know, but not for me, mate.
The Cell.
Oh, love it. Vincent D'Onofrio and Jennifer Lopez, isn't it, that one?
That's right.
Mm.
Black Swan, which again is a very psychological film.
There's a couple of scenes I like in it.
Candyman.
I rewatched Candyman a little while ago, and actually, it's terrible. It was. I think you had to watch it when it came out, because it seemed to have dated. It just was horrible. Really disappointed, because it was a movie I watched when I was younger that I really enjoyed, and I thought, oh yeah, I'll watch that. And I put it on, I was like, oh, it's terrible. I should have just left it as a teenage movie or whenever it would come out.
What about 1992's Brain Dead, directed by Peter Jackson?
Absolutely love that.
Yeah, it's just silly good fun, isn't it? I don't class that as a horror. There's nothing in that film that I find suspenseful or scary. It's fun, and that's not a bad thing.
It's gross. I mean, it's the goriest movie ever made, isn't it?
Exactly.
Sicily.
That's what it is, a story. But even that, because it's so over the top, doesn't make it. It makes it almost comical. But that's not
Well,
a
it
bad.
is common. I mean, the zombies are sitting around a dinner table and bits of them are falling off and they're eating their own ears and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's gross, but it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good
I think
fun.
the scariest thing is the Sumatra and rat monkey in it. That looks a bit weird. But
Night 2007, Trick or Treat,
I haven't seen that.
Bad film.
The Conjuring.
Yeah, for me.
This is James Wan, which I know he's a fantastic director. Horror of
Yeah.
Dracula, which is the film I mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
directed by Terence Fisher and Christopher Lee. Halloween 3, Season of the Witch.
I quite like that one.
I know you like that one. I've not actually seen it, to be fair.
If you ignore the Halloween bit and just watch a film called Season of the Witch, it's pretty good. Huh?
One of the movies that I probably should have mentioned when I sort of talked about one of the first sort of horror films that I saw was The Wicker Man, released in 1973. Now, there's a new kind of version of this called Apostle, which is on Netflix. Have either of you seen The Wicker Man?
I've watched both of the Wicker Man movies, the Nick Cage one and the Edward Woodward.
The bees. Yeah.
The original one I liked. I like that kind of thing. I tried to watch The Apostle. I watched as much as I could bear, but I couldn't get into it.
Oh, shame. I really liked it. I just think that the sort of the 70s movies have a kind of a very strange atmosphere, and I think that's what really made The Wicker Man very eerie. Is it was kind of almost very, very possible that something like that could happen, that there's some isolated little island with a strange cult. The Fog,
they call that
released
Sheppy.
That's right. Yeah, the Isle of Man with 3 legs. The Fog, 1980, John Carpenter, one of the greatest of the John Carpenter films. When did you guys last see that film?
When did it come out? 1980.
Yeah.
So it must have been.
It's been a while since I have.
Yeah,
but I
probably
loved it.
1996, mate. Something like that, to be honest
Well,
with you.
if you're lucky enough to have the re-release at your local cinema, it's now been re-released in a remastered edition, along with The Thing, which unfortunately last night I was going to go and watch it, but I had to have my son, and there was no way they were going to let me in with my son for an 18. In fact, they wouldn't even let my son in yesterday to go and see Venom. So he is 13.
Which is a shame because that's good.
Well, I'm a big sort of fan, if you like, of the BBFC and the laws that and the certifications, and it's fair enough if the cinema says sorry, it's against our law that you can't come in and see a 15 when your son's 13. That's absolutely fine.
Having watched it, I can't figure out why that is a 15, and say Kong Skull Island isn't.
There we are. Someone sat, watched it, and made the decision.
I mean, I'm glad you said that, to be honest with you, Adam, because I worked in a cinema for a few years as a manager, and I got to be honest, people arguing that fact to me used to do my head in. Well, he's 14 and he's my kid. Yeah, I get that, and that's fine. If you want to let him watch porn at home, I don't care. That's up to you. Yeah. It's a bit weird.
That's a very good
but
point.
Laws is law.
I think the same thing applies to these movies. Is that it is down to the parents' discretion. What your kid watches without you being around is not in your control. But when you go to a controlled environment like a cinema, and a member of staff says, "I'm very sorry, but we cannot let your son watch this film because of our laws and regulations," then I'm absolutely.
And do you know who pays that fine? Do you know who pays that fine if the cinema gets caught?
Go ahead. Who's that?
Probably the manager.
They'll let him in. And it would be, so for instance, if you was to stand there and say, no, I'm not going to let them in because I want some ID, and then you relent and go, okay, go in, that fine can go to that person that let them in. So, I mean, this is the point. I mean, and I think, don't quote me on this, but I think it's around £10,000.
Is it really? Wow.
So you got to put it into context. Laws is laws. And if someone, is not very clued up, there might be some younger kid that's not really paying attention. That's not fair to fall on them. Because they're just sitting there doing a job for a little bit of money at the weekend. And, a lot of them, I mean, I had some of them there that weren't even old enough to go see some of the movies. So, are they responsible enough to do that? That's the question. So,
just back to the list. Witchfinder General, 1968. Ever heard of that film?
nope.
Yeah, isn't that Vincent Price?
It's Vincent Price again.
Yeah.
The Wolfman from 1941.
Yep. Lon Chaney
That
Jr.
picture, he looks a lot like Jeremy.
Very handsome.
Now, a movie that I was recommended by a friend was a film called You're Next, which is next on our list. Have either of you seen that film?
Yep, good film.
No, I don't think I have.
Black Sunday, 1960, directed by Mario Bava.
No.
Vampire, released in 1932. Andy, one of your... Vampire, thank you.
Yes.
I mean, this is the start of the sort of golden age of horror cinema, isn't it? Where you get these very eerie and grainy black and white movies that give you the willies, so to speak.
But that was when horror was about atmosphere and tension rather than excessive gore and jump scares.
And it was shot in 3 different languages as well.
House, released in 1977. And The Mummy.
Really? Hugo was looking good for his age, didn't he?
The Mummy, released in 1932. Another one of those great movies from that time.
Karloff, wasn't it, that one?
Yes, indeed. Carl Freund directed that movie. The Fly from 1958. Now, not the greatest of work going into the way it looked, but still a very creepy film. The Sixth Sense from 1999. Now, I don't know about you, but I saw that at the cinema at the time, and very, very gripping film.
It is a quality film. It's just one of those. I've seen it now.
What I had it ruined for me.
Same here, mate.
Someone went to the cinema, watched it, and come back and went, spoilers coming, by the way, everyone. Went, oh, Bruce Willis dead. It's like, really? So I've ruined the whole film. The whole point of it is a twist. I think it's one thing. Once you've seen it, and you're like, oh, well, I don't need to watch it again.
I mean, that's the thing. It got ruined for me, but I went in not really thinking about it, and I still enjoyed it. It didn't come as a surprise for me, but it was the point of where it came was a surprise. And same thing. I mean, I saw it. I loved it. I think it is a masterpiece. Shyamalan's best work, without a shadow of a doubt. However, I don't need to see it again. It's just one of those. It's not a bad thing. There are some films out there that are just made for one-time viewing, and that's cool. It doesn't make them any better or worse.
No, exactly. With its thoughtful blend of classic monster horror and family drama, and an environmentalist sort of background theme to it, The Host, directed by Bong Joon-ho and released in 2006, is a movie that I saw very recently and absolutely loved it. Have you seen this film, guys?
Is that the one where the thing comes out from under the bridge?
That's the one.
Yeah, actually, I really enjoyed that.
It's a cracking film. Yeah.
I really want to see this film, but again, I don't do Eastern movies, and it's subtitled. I don't want to watch it because of that. And if it was dubbed, it would ruin it even more for me, because I don't like seeing the dubbing in movies. I just can't find the time where I want to sit down and see this, but I really know that I'll enjoy it if I could. It's such a shame. This is what annoys me about Eastern films, is because there are so many things I'm missing out on that I'll enjoy. I just can't.
All you need to do is learn the language and you'll be fine.
Yeah, not hard.
Not actually a bad idea, mate, to be honest with you.
A bit of time and effort, you'll be all right.
Yeah, do. Carnival of Souls from 1962, directed by Herc Harvey. Very, very creepy film. I have actually seen this movie. It's about a guy who survives a terrible car accident, and in his aftermath, everything seems very wrong. It's got very strange music that comes from radio, etc., etc., and it's just a very creepy black and white film from the 1960s. Cat People from 1942.
I have seen that one.
You have?
Yeah, I quite enjoyed it.
Now, the sort of premise of this film is that a young woman is convinced that she turns into a deadly jungle cat whenever she's over with passion or anger. Doesn't sound exactly creepy, but there we go.
Doesn't sound exactly a million miles away from the truth, either, does it?
The House of Devil from 2009. Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me. Yeah, Andy, that sounds like a sort of film that you've probably seen by David Lynch.
Twin Peaks. I've seen most of Twin Peaks, mate, and I've enjoyed it all, to be honest with you. I haven't seen the new one. I don't know if anyone's seen the new Twin Peaks series.
No.
No.
2017's It.
It's on my top 5, mate. But then I don't know if that's because it's fresh. So
It was okay. I had reservations, but I think because I prefer the Tim Curry Pennywise to the unpronounceable named gentleman. But
Skarsgård.
yeah, exactly. It's good Swedish chef guy. But I kind of thought that kids wouldn't do that. You know, if Pennywise got beaten up by a load of kids with sticks and ran away. And
Well,
I kind
it
of
had,
thought
it had
that
Stranger Things type feel to it, which is why I liked it.
Yeah, one of my favourite things about it was the aesthetic, the use of that 80s vibe that we don't capture much in films these days. Even if a film's set in the 80s, it doesn't really have that vibe. Stranger Things caught it, and it got it in a big way. And when I first started watching that, I even said to my wife, she hadn't seen it, I said, if I said to you this was made in the 80s and it was remastered, because obviously it looked shiny, I think you'd believe me. And she watched it and went, yeah, I get what you're saying, because the wood panelled basement, just everything, the costume design, you know, their jackets, everything. It was like seeing something like deleted scenes out of E.T. a lot of the time when they're on their bikes.
Too.
Exactly, man, and a beautiful soundtrack to that, and that's exactly what
it had. A Goonies feel, it had an ET feel to it, and I think had those elements to it, which I think made that film rather good.
Yeah, can't wait for the second one.
So it is on your sort of top 10 list.
Top 10 list, yeah, top 10, yeah.
The next movie, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, is actually on my next list. On my list, it's from 1956, ticked by Don Siegel, and it's an absolute masterpiece. I'm sure you guys have seen it.
Yeah, I have definitely. I enjoy that more than the Donald Sutherland one.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes.
Probably the earliest movie that's in this list is Phantom of the Opera from 1925. I mean,
with Lon Chaney, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. A girl walks home alone at night. This is a Persian language film, so I wouldn't imagine neither of us have seen it.
No, that's one language I do know.
Is another foreign language film. This is another South Korean movie. Raw from 2017. Any of you seen this film?
I know of it, but I've not seen it.
Now, here's a movie that I absolutely loved. The Others.
Yeah, I'm there with you, mate. One of the creepiest scenes in the last 25 years that I can remember is that kid sitting there underneath the vow, talking away. That is terrified me, that bit. And a great twist at the end of this movie. Wonderful. Have you seen it, Jeremy?
I'm not sure. Is it one of the ones where you've got people in the house and the kids break in and torture them? And
no, the Others. It's a Nicole Kidman movie about.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah. I'm not sure if I've seen it.
Is it? Are we talking the same one here? Is it the Nicole Kidman one? Yeah, that's good. Okay, yeah, it's and they are living in a house, aren't they? And they have the help, the butlers living there with them. And there's a great twist at the end. I won't ruin it for you, but
it is a real must-watch movie, I think, isn't it?
Okay, really, I'll watch that.
Yeah, no, it's really good. There is a few good jump scares in there. It's got a brilliant story to it. It's gripping. It's tense. There's
beautifully shot.
Yeah, it is really good film,
wonderful
mate.
Direction.
Yeah.
The Innocents from 1961.
No, I haven't seen that.
Kill List from 2012. And Scanners from 1981. Now, I'm sure.
Love that, yeah.
Love that film, but directed by David Cronenberg.
Michael Ironside, isn't it?
It has quite still remarkable special effects about it, which I think a lot of films don't hold up that well, do they? From that period of time, you know, but this really does, and I've probably only seen a quarter of it. I think it really the cover of that film with that guy kind of almost on fire, just
yeah.
You know, sometimes when people really annoy me, I just sit and stare at their head. Even now, I just sit there and I just imagine it just blowing up.
Blowing up. We Are What We Are from 2013.
I don't know that one.
Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Very good movie.
That's good, yeah.
This film, I think it was it about 11 weeks it took to shoot this movie, and they did it all on 16mm film.
Okay.
And this was what's his Rooker, isn't it? Michael Rooker.
Yeah, Michael Rooker.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
film made him very low budget, very easy production, cheap production. You know, it's a cheap film. You look at the core roots of this, and it's something we could probably start a Kickstarter and make ourselves. But this goes to the point of storytelling and how important that is to a film, because you can take everything else away from it, visual effects, the lot, and you can come out of a cracker. Because have you seen Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer?
I have.
Yeah.
On the same
Good
level,
movie.
I would say that The Great Shining, this has a very similar feel after seeing it. It leaves you with a very great sense of unnerve and it just gets right under your skin, this film.
So
I really, really
just
got
sorry,
to
just
me.
saw it was shot in less than a month
Was it
on
really?
on $11,000. So on a 62mm film, and that is outstanding for a movie like that. It did have production, not production, but distribution issues. I think it didn't come out until 1990, and that I think was a few years after it was made. And I think sometimes maybe that helps a film propel to that status. We had it with Clockwork Orange, where I remember being a kid and going to France on a day trip and seeing it on sale in English on VHS because we couldn't buy it over here. And they had it at the ferry terminal on sale because people wanted that movie and there was demand. People would go over just to get Clockwork Orange and come back again.
That's right. And this as well. I remember seeing this in Camden Market as a copy with a sort of photocopied cover being sold on VHS at Camden Market, and that always going to tempt someone to buy, isn't it? The fact that it's been banned.
Well, we all want what we can't have.
That's right. Nosferatu.
Otherwise, Emma Watson would be sitting on my sofa right now and not my wife. Hey.
Have you seen the release, the sort of the newer version of Nosferatu from 1979?
No, mate.
Klaus Kinski, wasn't it?
You could be
he
right.
did it.
You could be right. Reanimator from 1985, which another one of those movies that was a classic on VHS.
That's just fun, isn't it? Again,
it is good fun. It's one of them, isn't it? It's just a silly, over-the-top movie, akin to like Evil Dead, I suppose. In a way, it's one of those, isn't it? I just thought of another film I wanted to put on my list.
Add it on. From 1973, starring Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie, Don't Look Now. A very psychological film. Did you like this film? Yeah. The Birds from 1963 by Alfred Hitchcock.
That was quite good.
It was quite good. Carrie from 1976, directed by Brian De Palma.
Yeah.
I mean,
my wife.
You couldn't feel more sincerely connected to her, could you, during the film?
Well, no, my wife pointed out this whole film is about a girl getting her first period. Because if you actually look at the film, she said she starts off, she has a period in the shower, and by the end of the movie, everyone's dead and the school's on fire.
And she's covered in blood.
Yeah, but it's a very good film. Carrie is great. I think this is another King, isn't it? And
it's the weirdest sort of revenge film, isn't it? As revenge films go, that it really is a sort of a, did those guys all deserve it at the end when she gets her own back? But it's that final moment when you think the film's finished that I think frightens you the most, isn't it?
Yeah. It's
what's more frightening is the remake. Just don't watch that.
Yeah, no, don't watch that. Stephen King movies I find are very hit and miss with me. Because obviously everyone seems to have made a Stephen King film, and there's so many more. I think there's probably more Stephen King movies than any other franchise.
But do you think he would be? Do you think he'd be really proud of the way that this has been transferred from book to film?
I don't know, because I know he's very vocal. I've never seen his thoughts on Carrie, but he has been vocal about a lot of his movies, hasn't he?
The Evil Dead from 1981, Sam Raimi's movie.
Quality, isn't it? I still prefer the second one.
I do.
So this is The Evil Dead is the sort of classic cabin in the woods scenario, isn't it?
Yeah.
Done and dusted and tried and tested. Son of Frankenstein from 1939. Have either of you seen that?
No.
I'm bound to have done.
The Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1978, which is the Philip Kaufman's remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which you won't follow. It Follows. Have you seen It Follows from 2014?
No.
No. Now, last weekend when I was having fun, my friend Charlie did actually mention to me, we were talking about this, and he told me to watch It Follows, and he told me the whole premise and everything. And I thought, well, it just sounds a little bit cheesy, but everywhere I've read about It Follows, everyone seems to love it.
Yeah, I haven't heard good things about it.
Yeah.
I think, if you had a demon following you and walking slowly in your direction, and if it catches you, you die with a horrifying fate. It always is a bit scary, but the fact that, you pass this demon on through sex is even, that's the bit that kind of made me think, oh, should I really watch this film? I got recommended it from a friend, David. He said it was brilliant. I started watching it, and it really did. It did some stuff, and I must admit, I didn't make it through the rest of the film. Child's Play, good old Chucky.
That's all right.
Just fun again, isn't it? It's not scary. It's fun. All of those Chucky films, I like Bride of Chucky, Seed of Chucky. They're all. I mean, they got progressively more stupid as they went on. But how can you really be terrified of a good guy doll? It's one of them.
The next movie by Zack Snyder, Dawn of the Dead.
Now me and Jeremy are going to butt heads here.
No, we're not, because of the running zombie movies. That's the best one.
It's a cracking movie. The remake of Dawn of the Dead. I prefer it to the original, and I'm going to annoy a lot of people saying that, but I find early zombie movies very dated now, and I understand budget restrictions because of the type of films they were, and studios wouldn't pick them up because of X, Y, and Z. And I like to see this Hollywood shine thrown on a movie sometimes like this. And I said about not liking remakes. Zombie films is probably one of the only genres where I do like it, because there's a lot more time and effort and money put into it. And with a director like Zack Snyder behind it, and there's some really good people in that movie, actors. Elizabeth Moss is the girl from The Handmaid's Tale. She's in it. She's the nurse, the main star. I can never remember the guy's name, but he plays Phil Dunphy in Modern Family. He's in it, and he plays a right arrogant so-and-so, the guy with a boat.
Isn't Ving Rhames in it as well?
Yeah, Ving Rhames is in it, and it's got a really cool little cast. There's some real funny moments. I love the bit where they're doing the celebrity shootout
on the roof. Yeah.
It's a really good little movie, this one. And if you haven't seen it, I'd implore you to go watch it, because you'll be in for a good hour and a half bit of fun.
Does it have all the does it have the production values and the direction that Zack Snyder normally brings to movies?
Yeah.
I think this is something that I would definitely get into. Record.
I will say, don't watch the remake of Dawn of Day of the Dead.
No, not good.
That is really terrible. Really,
we'll get to
bad.
that. We'll get to that. The Descent.
Love that movie.
Yeah, good film.
It's pretty damn scary, isn't it?
Genuine terrifying, yeah.
That is an actual scary film.
Yeah. Did that make your list, Andy?
Sorry?
Did that make your list?
The Descent, it's kind of, yeah. My list is very fluid here, because I said to you before we started recording, there's Halloween films and there's horror films. There's two different things. There's films I'd watch on Halloween, and there's films I'd watch that I love as horror. That'd be on my horror list. It's not a Halloween film to me.
Well, we're going to get to this Halloween list, because I think this is as you say, it's extremely important that we find the sort of the must-watch films, perhaps 3 of them on the night that would be the must-3 films to watch on Halloween. Paranormal Activity, I went to see at the cinema with my sister, which is back in 2009, and this genuinely scared the crap out of me, the same way Blair Witch did. It had a sort of real sense of realism. What do you guys make of that film?
I absolutely hated it.
Did you?
I thought, it didn't scare me in the least. I can't stand found footage movies anyway. Blair Witch was awful, I thought. But I just, all them Paranormal Activity things, just blah. I didn't like any of them. So everyone's going to want to shoot me now. But
well, no, because this is good, because you hate it, you love it, and I'm somewhere more to Adam's side of it. I'm not the love it. I enjoyed Paranormal Activity. The first one, I watched it, I enjoyed it. I thought it had some genuine scary moments. I have no need to have watched any of the others. To me, it's one of those nice little little contained films
It's done
that I
and
can watch.
dusted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I never have to watch it again.
Guillermo del Toro's Kronos. Have you seen this macabre
No.
fantasy film?
No, I haven't.
I know. I wanted one movie that you've both seen is Misery,
Yep.
the
Yeah.
Stephen King novel turned into a movie. And how well do you think this transferred?
I should imagine. Yeah.
I preferred the book, obviously, because the books tend to be better. But it was a good movie. Kathy Bates in that was brilliant. She was fantastic.
Yeah.
Another movie by transference from Stephen King as an adaptation was The Dead Zone, directed by David Cronenberg, starring Christopher Walken. Ringu, the original. The Orphanage.
No.
Audition. And one of my favourites, and is on my list, The Omen.
Prefer the remake.
Okay. Videodrome, another David Cronenberg movie from 1983.
Good film.
Dead of Night from 1945.
Yeah.
And another Guillermo del Toro movie called Pan's Labyrinth.
Now, I'm just going to throw it out here. I think Del Toro is really overrated.
Apart from Hellboy.
Apart from Hellboy.
But let's be honest, the first one's better. And that's because there was studio involvement. And then when they said to him, you can do what you want because you made us money, he went and put out that golden, whatever the hell it was.
Golden Army.
Yeah, nah. Do you know, Del Toro has this thing where he can make, he's like Lucas in my eyes. I think that's what he's like, George Lucas. The visuals and the ideas and all that, it's great. The execution is terrible. He needs to be there as a creative, as somebody who goes, this is this and this is what that looks like, and then give somebody else the directing role.
What scared me about this film was not the creatures, but actually her father. He was the scariest thing in it.
Yeah,
terrifying. Yeah. Let Me In, released in 2010. The Devil's Backbone, by another Guillermo del Toro movie.
No, I haven't seen that.
Frankenstein from 1931, directed by James Whale, not the radio presenter, obviously. The Night of the Hunter from 1955.
Robert Mitchum, that one, isn't it?
It was. Good shout, mate. And another movie that's on my list is The Babadook.
I didn't like that particularly.
Jeremy, Andy.
Not saying it, mate. I want to, but my wife is a little scaredy cat.
It's a extremely
says the man who won't watch it on his own.
creepy film. I absolutely loved it because it is a very psychologically dense horror film, which is what I really love. It was a debut feature by and directed by Jennifer Kent, and it's a masterpiece, and I highly advise it. As this next film is also on my list, Train to Busan. Now, you're not going to watch this, Andy, because it has subtitles, but it is a fantastic zombie movie, and they move quickly, really quickly. Jeremy?
They're doing a remake of it, aren't they? And so
good. So I can actually see the fast-moving zombies and not be reading white text at the bottom of the screen.
Do you know what? I think you could probably watch this film with the sound down. You could. It is amazing, and it has a beautiful backstory, father-daughter going on without telling too much about it, and it is a really epic action film too. The Martyrs from 2008.
Repulsion,
1965, a Roman Polanski film. Jacob's Ladder.
I have seen Jacob's Ladder. That was just weird.
Yeah.
It was.
Was that Tim Robbins?
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
What about Hellraiser by Clive Barker?
Classic.
I like Clive Barker, so Hellraiser's always going to be good.
Yeah.
Now, there was several of these films too, wasn't there?
Yeah. Doug Bradley's Pinhead, isn't it?
There's an unfortunate thing going on with the Hellraiser films because there was one released, I think it was last year or a year before. It come out straight.
Terrible.
Yeah, it is terrible, and it come out straight to DVD, and it was made all within a couple of months, and it's all to do with retaining the rights. I don't know what company it is that holds them, but they were. I think it was 6 months away from losing the rights to Hellraiser, and they suddenly thought, oh, we better make one to keep it, because obviously there's kind of been a renaissance of horror movies lately and old IPs, such as Halloween and Jason and Freddy. We're getting all these films still, and they want to keep on to that. And instead of trying to make something good, they've gone and thrown out these things we've had recently. So the Hellraiser property, unfortunately, is going through some hell itself. But one day, hopefully, we'll get Pinhead back.
So would you just say that, just if you haven't seen Hellraiser, just watch this original film directed by Clive Barker, and that'll be all you need.
Yeah.
Now, one movie that was out last year was a movie called Get Out. Have either of you seen this film?
I have.
It's Jordan Peele's film, which combines classic genre tropes with issues of racism to create something very fresh and dynamic. It's deeply unsettling. It's a hard watch.
To be honest, I don't get this because I love Jordan Peele. I think his comedy with Keegan-Michael Key.
Yeah,
it's one of my favourite things. I sit there and binge watch them every night before I go to bed. Get Out, phenomenal movie. I can't remember the guy.
The actor
David I can never remember his name. Daniel Kaluuya. That's it. He's fantastic in it. It's a great movie, but I don't see it as a horror movie. I see it as a psychological thriller. And I don't get why it's been put on all these lists, and it's not to take anything away from it, but if I was to ever think of a horror movie, it wouldn't be something that sprung to mind. That doesn't mean it's not a great film, because it really is. It's a fantastic movie, but nah, not on my list of horror films, mate.
And it's not really it's certainly not a movie to watch. You're going to go for a nice road trip in the States, is it?
Yeah.
1996, a movie that absolutely was a phenomenon was Scream, directed by Wes Craven. Now, Andy, mate, I reckon this is way up. This has got to be on your list.
Number one, mate.
I thought it would be
number one on my list. There you go. It's all written out there.
Scream. When we get to these lists, I can't wait to hear your kind of review on it. But Jeremy, Scream, fan of the old slasher with the white elongated melted face?
Yeah, ghost face. I mean, it's fine. Again, it's not really a horror though, is it? It's a comedy.
Don't you dare.
Yes.
Don't you dare. No, we're going to talk about this because you say that and there's a problem with this. And I've spoken about this to my wife and to Charlie about this. Scream has unfortunately fallen on its own sword because it was the original. Scream started this slasher genre that we had in the 90s to early 2000s, and it got parodied and it got used and it got copied and emulated so many times that it became a parody of itself. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people look back at Scream as being something that's a bit of a joke. Now,
Andy,
I was 13 when this came out.
Andy, what were those movies that did actually take the mickey out of Scream?
Scary Movie.
Thank you.
And they were part of that problem. And I enjoy the first Scary Movie film because I think it does a great job of parodying all of those. I mean, they got terrible by number 4 and 5. But Scream itself is a victim of its own greatness because it was terrifying. You've got to see this from I know you guys are older than me, and when I was 13 when this came out, and this VHS did the rounds at my school. You know, one of us had it, and we lent it to this person and that person, and everyone wanted it because it was an 18, and you know, we watched this, and it was genuinely terrifying. You know, we've got this first scene. You're sitting around your friend's house, and they're in the house, and she's getting the phone call. And I can't think of anything more terrifying than being in a house, my phone going off, and someone telling me that. I mean, I've been there. I've had. I'll tell you the story another day. But we've had someone on the phone saying, "Oh, what are you doing sitting there?" Blah blah blah. That's terrifying.
That's frightening.
Go through. But obviously, we get. And it is slightly comical. I get that, Jeremy. I get the point of, it's a little bit over the top.
It's the bit where they're stabbing each other in the side and going, "Oh, that was a bit too deep," and you're kind of, they're almost like stoner.
It's got to be a sequel. Well, he is Scooby-Doo. It's Matthew Lillard.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean.
Not Scooby-Doo. He's Shaggy, isn't he? But it's
Scoob.
I think that it's Wes Craven for a start, and it was one of the greatest horror directors there's ever been, and it just set. It was kind of a resurgent, a new start to modern horror, because after that we got some terrible films, albeit, but we got I Know What You Did Last Summer. We got the Final Destination movies. I don't think we would have got any of them movies had it not been for Scream. And when I think of horror, to me, more terrifying is a man dressed up in a suit that's trying to kill me in my own house than summoning demonic forces from another world, because the man in the suit could happen and the demonic forces is just fun storytelling. And when I think horror, someone chasing me in my house trying to stab me is real. That could happen. And that's terrifying.
I think that, literally the nail in the head, or if you like, you've hit the nail on the head there, mate, which is that Halloween is all about the knocker at the door, the phantom phone call, the trick-or-treater, the strange guy staring at your window when you just about to close the curtains.
Because this Skype call, I can see my patio door behind me, and I keep
they
thinking
are.
I see something.
So, if we point near it, you would go, ah!
A movie from 1922, Nosferatu, is a genuinely creepy film. Cabin in the Woods from 2012. Now, I loved this.
I'm not a fan.
I really liked it, and again, it has a great deal of humour in it. The Blair Witch Project, I know, Andy, is one of your faves from 1999, and I went to go and see this in the cinema. Did you see it in the movies?
I was too young, mate, but it's number 2 on my list.
Fantastic.
I don't get it at all.
It's okay, Jeremy.
No.
We'll just keep the silly storytelling and the small stories for you to understand. That's all right.
I went to see this film with went to see it with a girlfriend, and she literally was breaking my arm from hanging on to it.
I know you're insatiable.
The thing about the Blair Witch Project is that you don't actually see anything at all in the entire film, and that's what I think it was absolute genius. The whole the myth of this found tape, found footage, seemed extremely believable, and it was so well acted, and at such a low budget and such an easy, simple idea that it was pulled off. And it is a fantastically scary film without seeing anything whatsoever.
Controversial point. I really like the sequel.
Did you?
Yeah, because I thought
I didn't watch it.
The sequel is a film. It's a genuine
Book of the Dead or something. Isn't it?
Yeah, it's Book of Shadows, I think.
Book of Shadows, right.
Yeah, it's just a movie, and they reference the film, the original film, being what it was. This found footage film that everyone says was real, that turned out that it wasn't. And I really like that meta storytelling in it, and I thought that worked really well, because referencing the first one and making it not real was a really clever move, and I just enjoy it. It's a silly good bit of fun.
I can't get on with found footage films. I just don't like them.
Yeah, well, each their own,
Indeed. A movie that is again on my list is a movie called The Witch, released in 2016, and the debut by Robert Eggers is a fantastically eerie, scary movie, and it follows a small family who get almost ostracized from their church. They go and live on some land. They get God to bless it, and things go from worse to extremely bad. It's extremely psychological. It's very simple. It deals with lots of ideas of whether this is almost a kind of hypnotherapy, that one person believes something and the rest of the family does. I don't know if you guys have seen this film. I absolutely love it. It's brilliantly acted by a tremendous cast. Have you seen it?
No, mate. Sorry.
Okay, I'll talk to myself there. 1931's Dracula.
Yeah.
It's gotta be watched that, I think. 28 Days Later, directed by Danny Boyle. It's a good zombie movie.
They're not zombies. Zombies.
It's a very good zombie movie, Adam. You're right. It's on my list. Yeah.
They're not
The Fly.
zombies.
Just everyone, just ignore Jeremy. Just
They
ignore
die of
Jeremy.
starvation.
Just ignore Jeremy. Just ignore him.
Jeremy. I like my zombies to move.
Jeremy's talking.
It's not zombies.
Zombies that move slowly.
But no, it's not because they run. That's not why they're not zombies. Because at the end of the movie, they're all dying off of starvation, so they're not zombies.
Okay. Someone's a bit nerdy when it comes to zombies. The Fly from 1986 is on my list. The David Cronenberg film starring
Absolutely brilliant, yeah.
Jeff Goldblum. I mean, this is to me what sci-fi horror is all about. American Werewolf in London, directed by John Landis. Does this make your lists at all?
Yeah.
Let the Right One In.
No. It's all right.
Suspiria?
No.
Dawn of the Dead. The George A. Romero classic from 1978. Where do you rate that?
I love that one.
Oh, that's not on my list, mate. Because they're silly zombies. Just silly zombies.
Actual ones.
Mm.
Actual zombies, because they're not very good. Yeah.
Do you think?
It's all right.
Do you think this next film is probably Wes Craven's best? A Nightmare on Elm Street?
No.
Oh, controversial.
No. I like it. It's all right. I think.
But I think that's an age thing though, because we would have been teenagers, and when it first came out, that was the scariest movie anyone had seen.
Scream. This is exactly what I'm saying to you, mate. It's almost a generational thing. Yeah. Where that's the thing you grew up with. Now I watched Nightmare on Elm Street and I found it quite laughable in places. Where he's stuck to the ceiling, there's blood everywhere. It's cool, but for me, it was just
seeing Johnny Depp get stabbed through the back.
He gets pulled down into the bed, doesn't he?
Was it pulled down the bed? Was it? Oh god.
Yeah.
And all the blood goes to the ceiling.
That's it, yeah. And it's a lot. It's a good film, and don't get me wrong. It's not that I don't enjoy it. I do, and I think it's a great movie. Freddy Krueger is a great antagonist and scares the bejesus out of my wife. We watched the remake, which I do enjoy. Because I think
I don't hate the remake either.
It gave
more backstory, and I enjoyed that.
That's what I like, the backstory to Freddy Krueger. I think it's great. You see that whole scene in the school and the whole village teaming up in him. And I love that part of it. And I remember when we watched that, she had to have the light on in bed for about 3 or 4 days. The table lamp, because she just couldn't deal with it. And she says to me, well, what could be scarier than someone that wants to kill you in your sleep? And yeah, she's right. I mean, there's, we all have to sleep some point. No matter how long you try and stay awake, you're going to go asleep, and then he's going to get you. And that's a great premise for an antagonist.
That's the best bogeyman you can have, isn't it?
Yeah, you cannot escape him. No matter how long. It's kind of like it follows. It's always coming towards you, but how long you can stay away is up to you. And that's a clever premise.
We're getting towards the really good stuff now, and Poltergeist, I always thought was directed. Strange why, I don't know why I thought it was. I thought this was Steven Spielberg for some reason. Poltergeist.
He was part of it. It's
Tobe Hooper, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what was scarier? Was it the TV set and everything else, or was it Carol Ann, that little old woman?
Really bad drawn effects of the hands and the smoke. That's what's the worst bit of it. Don't like that, mate.
Poltergeist is a classic. That is an absolute classic.
There is some freaky bits. The girl sitting there at the TV saying they're here, I get it, is creepy.
The bit when the guy pulls his face off, I forgot how gross that was.
Produced by Steven Spielberg. There we go. Now, The Thing.
Yeah.
Now, I watched The Thing because I didn't see it at the cinema last night. I rewatched it again. I've seen The Thing now 3 times in maybe 4 weeks. I don't think this film is ever going to get tiresome. I see something different every time I watch it. I love the effects that are physical. It's a wonderful, wonderful film, and it does get.
I have a question for you about
the praise it deserves. I think it does get the praise it deserves.
At the end. Which one of them is The Thing?
Well,
because one of them definitely is.
That's right. And I would say it is the black dude.
But is it?
I think it is. I don't think it's Mr. Russell. I don't think our hero is The Thing. But there is the coat, and I think the coat the coats, if you
See,
like.
he disappeared for a while, didn't he?
He did disappear for a while. It's a possible thing. I don't think that has ever really been answered, that question. But
Would you, if you know that the other person is probably the thing, would you share a bottle of drink with him? Because you know if there's any saliva on that, you're
it's
going
a
to get
very
infected.
good point. But didn't
So
he pass? Didn't he pass the blood test? They both passed the blood test. Of course they did, didn't they?
Yeah,
Who conducted the blood test?
McCready.
Yeah. Well, so they didn't fake it.
Yeah.
It's a possible thing, and that's why it deserves to be watched many, many times. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, released in 1974, another movie directed by Tobe Hooper. This film is bleak, it's bloody, it's full of brutality.
It's not actually that bloody. If you watch it, there's
No.
almost no blood in it. It gets a really bad reputation for being like a really massively gory film. It really isn't.
It's just some dude in a wig running around.
It's just
going,
inbreds.
like that for an hour. It's ridiculous.
I don't mind it. I quite like the remake. There are other versions of it that I enjoy. Again, I told you earlier, I watched Leatherface and Small. Don't watch that. It's just awful.
Awful. What isn't awful is a movie from 1968 directed by Roman Polanski, and it's Rosemary's Baby. I mean, it is an absolute classic. It's disturbing, and it's very upsetting at times. And I highly advise seeing Rosemary's Baby. How do you rate this film?
I've seen it when I was younger. I don't really remember it. It didn't have a massive effect on me.
It didn't resonate with me either, mate.
Yeah.
Now, we're going into the last of the top 10 in this list before we go to our own list. And Night of the Living Dead, the 1968 George A. Romero, the black and white movie. I love this film. This is probably my favourite zombie movie of all of them. And I'm sticking to that.
What about ones that run, though? Is it better than
No, I'm sticking to this. Apart from Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead is my favourite. And I'm not having Evil Dead 2.
Yes.
Evil Dead 2 is brilliant, yeah.
That's the one you think is probably the best of the lot, do you think?
I just think it was where Raimi had a great idea, made it, and then a studio turned around and went, that's brilliant, let's do it again, and we'll give you the budget. And he's gone all out on the second one and turned it into a lot more visceral, enjoyable movie that's so much more well produced and put together. And like it's kind of a remake, isn't it? It's
it
weird.
Is a remake. It's not a sequel.
Yeah, it is, because it's the same story, isn't it? They go to the woods and crap starts to go down. And I actually remember the first time that I watched this. I'd watched the first one because my brother bought the triple pack on VHS, and we watched the first one, and then we watched the second one, and I'm thinking, hang on, what's going on? Why has he gone back to a cabin in the woods again? You'd never go back to one again, would you? After that, and then it become apparent that it's just a nice remake of the first one. And again, that's a really good remake, and it makes it much better. Yeah, I really enjoy this film. Probably Sam Raimi's best work in my eyes.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
An Oscar was given
Spider-Man
to
3.
Yeah, an Oscar winner, The Silence of the Lambs, from 1991. I wouldn't say it's particularly horror.
No, this is what I mean. This
again.
goes in with Get Out. This is one of those. If I was making a list of psychological horrors, then this would be up there with Get Out in that top part of it. But it's not a Halloween horror-y film to me.
What would be a film featuring a giant fish from 1975? Steven Spielberg's Jaws. Yeah,
love it.
Next. Now,
I absolutely love it. It's an absolute classic, and I can watch that every day.
Well, we won't be coming round. Alien.
Yes.
From 1979, Ridley Scott. I'm not going to tell you where that is on my list just yet, but
I'll allow it. I'll allow this to be on a horror list because
it is.
Because I've always said this. Take the sci-fi element out of this and put it as a monster in someone in a cabin in the woods or something, or in the middle of a shopping mall late at night, or in a dark museum, that sort of setting, and it works just as well. And
what about this getting the best tagline for any film? In space, no one can know you scream, as a great tagline, I think, personally.
It's a brilliant tagline, isn't it? I love it. It sums up the whole movie. It gives it an air of horror from the offset, doesn't it? You read that in space, and no one can hear you scream. There's a lot of other things that people don't know you're doing in space, but what I'd do alone on the space station is up to me.
I think there are several moments in that film that Ridley Scott had allowed the space within that film to happen. Just let it just roll. There's some beautiful slow camera movements, and then you get the sudden shock moments that I think a great horror film gives you. Bride of Frankenstein from 1935, another directed movie by James Whale. Have either of you seen that?
I have, yes. That was a good film. I enjoyed that.
And the perfect film for Halloween is Halloween itself, directed by the great John Carpenter. Okay, so you've seen the remake, Jeremy. This original film, guys, give us your views on what has to be watched on Halloween.
I absolutely love it. I think if you're going to watch any movie on Halloween, it's got to be that one.
What, Halloween?
Yeah, it's got to be that one.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, this is probably the greatest slasher film ever, isn't it?
Yeah. It's. I mean, I love Scream. It's number one on my list of horror movies. But without Halloween, we wouldn't have Scream, because that's the premise of that film, isn't it? Of Scream, it is the old 1970s and 80s slasher and horror films, and Halloween is the crux of that. It's the main point of Scream, and Jamie Lee Curtis is amazing as she always is in everything she does, and John Carpenter knocked it out of the park with this movie, man.
That's another one with the soundtrack is a massive part of it.
Yeah. And again, John Carpenter,
builds, doesn't it?
Not just a great director, but a fantastic musician.
Yeah.
Again, going to soundtrack, and directed by the great Alfred Hitchcock, is Psycho. Now, I like my horrors if they're going to be in black and white. Psycho is at the top of the list for being one of those movies that wouldn't work in colour, would it?
It doesn't, mate. I've seen the sequel, the remake.
Yeah, they tried it, didn't they?
And Hesh, isn't it? And to be fair, it's one of those. It kind of annoys me, but I like what they tried to do with it. When I see a
shot remake, wasn't it?
It is, yeah. It's a shot for shot, and it's really cool for doing that. And I like what they tried to do with it. It didn't. It fell flat, and there's reasons for that. And why touch something like Psycho? You don't need to remake it. Same as Halloween, you didn't need to remake it. You wouldn't remake Star Wars because you don't need to. And Psycho, it's Alfred Hitchcock. He's a classic. He's a classic director, classic movie, and it was pivotal to the future of horror filmmaking. And when you remake it and you do it shot for shot, that's cool. I saw what they tried to do. It didn't work. I would prefer them to have gone somewhere like with the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. Let's put some more depth into this. And we had that with Bates Motel, and I don't know if you two have ever seen it.
No.
Bates Motel, I haven't finished watching it.
I've watched a few of them.
Really good. Yeah, and that's what I mean about the backstory. You start to delve into the story of the Bates family and understand why Norman becomes so screwed up. And it's interesting, and that's what I wish they'd done with another Psycho movie. But we got it in Bates Motel, so that's cool. But Psycho, classic.
This director, Alfred Hitchcock, the master of suspense and a true master of tension as a filmmaker. This has to be the pinnacle of his movie-making career, don't you think? I mean, North by Northwest has a huge amount of suspense, Rear Window, great thriller, the Birds, of course. But Psycho is, without a doubt, his greatest movie, do you not think?
Well, it's hard for me to say yes to, because I adore North by Northwest. If it was going to do a list of 100 movies, I can say North by Northwest would be a lot higher on there than Psycho, but then that is because I do have a massive love for Cary Grant movies.
Yeah.
I've seen far too many Cary Grant movies that a 35-year-old man should have seen. And yeah, so that's probably why, because I adore him as an actor. But yeah, it is.
He's a good guy to have a man crush on as well, isn't he?
Yeah, totally, mate.
1973, William Friedkin's The Exorcist. Tubular Bells, as we were talking earlier, was never a scary musical arrangement, but in this film,
it's the best part of the film.
The tension.
Thank you, Jeremy. I don't like this film. It just does nothing for me.
I would have loved to have seen this film in black and white. Now, the promo shot of the priest looking up at the window is in black and white, and I really wish this film was, because I think it would have changed the way that we looked at Linda Blair. Because let's face it, that wasn't great.
She was brilliant.
She was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But the makeup wasn't great, and you know, watching a documentary on the making of it, which I did once, and they said that we're all underneath the bed giving it a shake and knocking it against the wall and things like that, and you can see us kind of underneath there and stuff like that. Doesn't help this film at all. But The Shining, I think, is probably the greatest horror film of all time. What do you guys think?
I can't comment because I haven't seen it.
Right.
And
Did the zombies run?
I'm impartial to it, mate. I don't think I've seen it enough. I don't think I've seen it recently enough to pass enough judgment on it. But I remember watching this probably early 2000s, and I didn't really rate it that much. But then it could be a frame of mind thing. It could be the fact that I'm not a big fan of Kubrick, to be honest with you. There's not many films of his that I've seen that I've loved. Clockwork Orange being aside from that, because I think that's a masterpiece.
It is.
I don't know. I've got to sit down and give this some time. I don't really like what's his name? Who's the main guy in it? Please enlighten me.
Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson. Not a big fan of Jack
Nicholson either, no.
No, so there's not much sort of pulling me towards it. However, I feel with the stats that it has and the thing that we do as a pastime here, sitting there talking about movies, I really should give it a bit more time. Like you said, Jeremy, you were going to try and watch it earlier. It's one of those I've really got to sit down and watch this as intended and with the critical eye to pass judgment. I didn't hate it. I just didn't love it. It didn't leave an impact on me. Because it's a different kind of horror. Now, that being said, what's the second book called again? I can never remember.
Well, I was just about to talk about exactly that, because this is probably the greatest non-transfer Stephen King book-to-film movie that there has been. And I have no idea what the second book was called. All I know is that this was... Because
they're making it into a film, aren't they? And
what they're doing,
Ewan McGregor's in it.
That's right, playing the son. I was not aware of a second book of this, but I think this is one of those films that deserves repeat viewing. And when you was talking about frame, this is one of those movies that almost you have to have with your remote and pause it and look at each frame as it happens, because each scene has so much going on and also very little, and that's what really makes this film work. Is it? It doesn't answer your questions. It really doesn't. There is a lot of scenes in it. There's a lot of shots. There's a lot of props that actually tell you something but tell you nothing, and that's why I think this is a real masterpiece. But certainly on Halloween, that's not the kind of film that you want to be watching now.
No.
Sorry,
just so Doctor Sleep is the name of the sequel book, and is not actually out yet. It's not out until January 2020. So I should imagine, and this again leads me to worry, is this something they're doing in conjunction with the film? And I hate it when they do this. The original movie can hinder the progress of the book, the second book of something, and I have this problem with Ready Player One, but we'll get onto that another time.
Indeed. I'm gonna just very quickly just go through my top. I was gonna go through my top 20 horror to Halloween movies, but I'm just gonna read you my top 5 because you guys have got a much better list than mine for a night of Halloween, I'm sure, because we really want to talk about the sort of 3 films on Halloween that you stick on at say 6 o'clock at night, and by midnight you're just finishing off. My top 10 basically is Poltergeist, Hereditary, The Witch, The Babadook, Train to Busan, Tucker and Dale versus Evil, Shaun of the Dead, The Shining, The Thing, and number 1 is Alien. Now, guys,
Cool.
let's have your Halloween must-watch movies. Starting with you, Jeremy.
Oh, I've got plenty. Again, Halloween. You've got to have Halloween.
You've got from 6 till midnight, okay? You've got to have from 6 till midnight. That's really, I think, the basis of this.
I would have probably shadowing a lot of what you said, but I would have Halloween. I would have Shaun of the Dead. Be the last one I watched to lighten up. Poltergeist. I'd definitely have. Probably The Lost Boys. I'd stick that in there.
Good choice, mate.
That's a good Halloween film. Yeah,
I think that's a fun Halloween. Nightbreed. I like Nightbreed. That's the kind of monstery Halloweeny thing.
Mm-hmm.
Talking of monsters, you're a big fan of Dog Soldiers as well, aren't you? But
Dog Soldiers, yeah.
A good werewolf film is good for Halloween. Andy, man, let's have your Halloween films.
Well, I can't condense it down, but there's a whole list here. I'm going to go through them quite quickly because I know some of them are the same. But the must-haves for my Halloween night would definitely be Scream, Blair Witch, Halloween. Right, that's 3 movies there that I would have to watch if I was going to have an all-out marathon.
In what order?
I think I would start with Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'd probably go on to Scream for a bit of light entertainment, a bit of popcorn flick while I'm, getting there ready to watch something a little bit later on in the night. It's not a comedy, Jeremy. Behave. And then I'll get on to the Blair Witch, something a little bit more serious. Shaun of the Dead would be on there. That'd probably be the 2 a.m. one when I'm a little bit drunk and, didn't really want to pay too much attention and just have a laugh. But other films that I have on my list, now one of them is Casper, the Christina Ricci film, right? I love that movie. Okay. It's really good fun.
It's a ghost film. It's a ghost film.
It's a ghost film with Eric Idle in it and Bill Pullman, I believe, in it. Yeah, it's a great film, that one. Another one is The Frighteners that I would have on my list. Michael J. Fox movie. Absolutely adore that. I think that harkers back. That's the one I put on my list when we saw The Reanimator, because it's him, isn't it, as the FBI agent in it. It's a good little comedy. It's got some really nice serious notes to it. When you delve into Michael J. Fox's character's backstory, it's horrible to see that. I've got American Werewolf, Mouth of Madness, John Carpenter's Mouth of Madness. You ever seen that? Sam Neill at Sam Neill's most psychotic best. Then we've got The Strangers, would be somewhere on my list. I like my home invasion movies because, like I said before, that's terrifying to me. We'll skip a couple of these because we spoke about them, but there's a film called Creep that I really enjoy, and this is from 2004, and I don't know if either of you have seen it, but it's about a girl that's trapped on a London subway.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's really good.
It is good, and it is terrifying, and I think, again, because I know London, and I know the subways, and I've been there late at night, that is a terrifying concept, to be locked into that tube station, going through those dark tunnels with this thing chasing you.
Anybody particularly famous in that?
Not really famous, no. I mean, you've got Vaz Blackwood, who you'd probably know from a few movies. He's a British film. He's from Lock, Stock and Mean Machine.
Right. Yeah,
and then you've got Sean Harris as well. Now, he is in Mission Impossible movies as Solomon Lane. He's in Harry Brown, 24-Hour Party People.
Yeah.
You'd know it again. He's one of those that if you saw him,
guessed on EastEnders and some of those kind of things. Attack the Block.
That's good film. Good film.
I mean,
and Frank Tente's in it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, there's. I thought there was one more I had on my list that I was going to say, but the new It, because I know you have your reservations, Jeremy, but I think it's great, and I'm still yet to get my wife to sit down and watch that because I just mentioned Pennywise and I get a slap. So,
if we're going to recommend 3 films out of this entire list that we've talked about, I'm going to just throw these at you because I think if we're going to literally recommend 3 films for Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Halloween. Now, do you not think that those 3 films are probably more Halloween based than anything else that we've gone through?
Yeah, a Halloween I think is a definite here. Resounding yes from all of us for a Halloween viewing.
Friday the 13th?
Yeah, I suppose if you're going to go old school on this and you're going to, get a few beers in, sit down and
I think between the two, I'd rather watch Halloween than Friday the 13th any day of the week. I quite like Jason versus Freddy, to be fair. That was quite fun.
And for a third definite 100% Halloween film to recommend?
Casper.
Great, guys. I think that's one hell of a conversation on horror and Halloween. And I wish everybody a really fantastic Halloween. And I hope our list was helpful and advice. Got some good advice there and some good recommendations. Will you guys be dressing up at all? And what's your cosplay of choice?
See, the thing is, right, I've got a 5-year-old and she really is into Vampirina at the moment. And unfortunately, I think we're doing a family costume and I have to dress as Vampirina's dad. So there's nothing scary coming my way. However, I have spent the afternoon because I went pumpkin picking yesterday. And I did show you before, didn't I, Jeremy? Sorry, Adam, my giant pumpkin. It's 25 kilos, this pumpkin that I have, right? And I do a bit of pumpkin carving, so I'm going to town on that bad boy tomorrow night. I don't know what I'm doing yet.
Oh, share pictures.
I have a smaller one, but I was
That's
actually...
what Adam said.
Pumpkin soup, is that going to be...
Oh, no, mate, it's disgusting. Pumpkin tastes horrible. The only good thing for it is carving it. But I do want some ideas.
Roasted. It's nice
because I was looking at doing sort of a pop culture horror one, and I was thinking Pennywise.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure. So if anyone's got any ideas,
I think probably the easiest costume to go is probably Sean, isn't it? It's got to be
for costumes, man. That's everyone's easy way out, isn't it? That's every man. I did see a meme about this, and it was what's the director's name? Edgar Wright had posted it on Twitter, and it was a meme that he posted. It was like, this is the time of year we all thank Edgar Wright for the most easiest male costume there is. Yeah.
Jason's pretty easy, do you think?
Yeah.
Who is?
I mean, boiler suit, bloody
No, see,
mask,
I did Jason for Comic-Con once.
Mask, rather.
And it's actually, if you really research it, there's a lot that goes into it. You have to get like a horse's bit for your machete on your leg, and there's loads of stuff. Yeah.
Jeremy, what are you going to be wearing?
Well,
if you could wear anything at all, what would you bung yourself?
I look scary anyway, so
you're not far wrong there, dude. The glasses soften everything up.
Well, I'm turning so I can see you. As soon as they come off, I look like a murderer again. Some kind of Viking horde.
If I could afford it, I would be in the full Darth Vader.
Yeah.
I think he's a pretty scary villain. I think certainly for turning up on the doorstep, I think that would scare most people. But guys, it's been an absolute pleasure discussing these films. As we were leading up to this, it was obviously a dutiful thing to try and watch as much horror as possible, and I didn't watch that much that was in the kind of horror genre. It was all sci-fi horror. I watched Event Horizon. I watched Prometheus, The Thing, obviously.
Have you seen Pandora?
No.
It's a good film, mate. That's got what's his name? The guy who plays Dixon, Daryl in Walking Dead. I can never his name.
Norman Reedus.
Norman Reedus is in that. Yes, and it's not a bad little sci-fi horror film. That Pandora. if you've never seen it, and obviously Event Horizon. And I think Pandorum takes a lot of beats out of Event Horizon with that sort of macabre, gothic, sort of sci-fi horror. It's well
Haunting
worth a
on Hill
watch.
House. Have you guys checked it out yet?
No, my wife won't let me, and I won't watch it on my own.
It's incredibly creepy, especially the first episode on Netflix. But there we go. That's for this week. I think we've covered all the boundaries and scary stuff here. As said earlier, have a safe Halloween. Enjoy yourselves. Get yourself all bloodied up, and do post your pictures on our Facebook group page, our Retro Inc. Facebook page. Look forward to seeing them, guys. Especially our Canadian listeners. I know you guys like to sort of really go for it, and you can check us out on those pages, our Twitter, our Instagram at Retro Inc. Do check out our website, retroinc.co.uk, podcast, retroincpodcast.co.uk. Andy, mate, have a safe one on Halloween.
Thank
Jeremy,
you, mate.
and enjoy your night with your kids, trick-or-treating.
Nice try.
Don't go out with the kids. Don't want to scare people. Thank you very much for listening, our listener, and take care, and we'll see you next time.
See you.